Allison Russell, welcome back to Australian Musician.
Thank you for having me.
Last time we spoke was in 2023. You were on a walk on Shelby Bottom's Greenway
Yeah,
Trail talking to me. Um,
that's right.
at that point, you'd only been to Australia once with Poe Girl. You were about to come here. How did that second trip turn out?
Oh, we had a lovely time. It was such Byron Bay Blues Fest is so fabulous, and we had a wonderful time opening for Jason Isbell as well on his tour dates, and it was joyful. We had a great trip. We're so excited that we get to come back.
Yeah. Will you be concentrating mainly on the Returner album on this tour?
There'll be a mix of things, some from the Returner, maybe a few from Outside Child, and maybe some previews of new songs from the upcoming record. So.
Okay.
Mhm.
I believe the Returner title song was inspired by Joni Mitchell. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Our Lady Returner. She is the epitome of grit and grace and a joyful survivor. So, and a deep inspiration. It's been, of course, one of the most surreal gifts of my career, by the auspices and magic of Brandy Carlisle, that I've been able to play in Joni's Joni Jam band and be present at all of her concerts over the last couple of years. She likes my clarinet playing, so I play clarinet and sing harmonies in the Joni Jam band, and it is truly just one of the greatest honors of my life.
Yeah, she's been unstoppable since she's got back on
She
stage.
is. She is. She's incredible. She goes from strength to strength, and she's just loving life and loving music and loving her community, and it just makes me so, so happy.
Yeah. Have you had a look at who else is playing Blues Fest this year? Are you looking forward to
Yes. Well,
seeing?
I'm really excited about Shaka Khan. I love Shaka so much, and she actually blessed us. When Outside Child first came out, if you recall, it was sort of the tail end of the lockdown, and the first public performance that I did was actually the return of the Newport Folk Fest in July 2021, and Outside Child had just come out in May 2021, and I was invited not just to do my Outside Child set, but to curate the final set of the festival. And I ended up doing a curation called Once and Future Sounds, where I really wanted to center amazing Black women artists on the stage that Mother Odetta built, and of course, active allies and wonderful other people too. But Shaka miraculously was our surprise secret guest again, because it was Brandy who connected us, Brandy Carlisle. And she said yes, and she came and surprised everybody. And I'm Every Woman and Ain't Nobody were every bit as much folk canon as Goodnight Irene. Everyone was singing along and dancing along, and it was so utterly joyful. So I'm really excited to see Shaka play her set, and I know she's got the new record. Her tiny desk was one of my favorite things I've ever seen. So we're all very, 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 very excited for Shaka.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that Blues Fest has her as the headliner,
Hmm.
because so many festivals in North America will only have men as headliners. It's been a topic of discussion, and I give credit where it's due. I love to see that. I love to see her at the very top of the bill.
Yeah. Tell me about the musicians that you'll be bringing down with you.
Well, they're wonderful. We've got Ganessa James, who was with me last time as well. Incredible vocalist, multi-instrumentalist, composer in her own right. Has her own project, The Onlyest, with her twin sister, Tiffany. She's absolutely brilliant. She'll be with me. The incredible Akiva Hopkinson, who hails originally from County Mayo in Westport, Ireland, but is of Okinawan and Irish heritage, and is just a brilliant musicologist, as well as a musical director, as well as a multi-instrumentalist and a gorgeous singer, and just a wonderful person. And then on the drums, we have Cuidabara, who is hails from Bray in County Wicklow, and whom I met through Hosier and our beloved tour manager, Captain Will. Um, Kui was in the first iteration of Hosier's North American band when he first came over to the U.S. With his band. As she was playing, they grew up together, in Bray. So she's amazing. And again, there's a theme. All of these artists are writers, multi-instrumentalists, poets, just beautiful humanists in their own right and have their own personal work that is extraordinary that I highly encourage everybody to check out. And I'm very lucky that they choose to also travel around with me. The Rainbow Coalition, I love them with all my heart.
Yeah. How many instruments do you travel with? Is it just the one clarinet?
I play banjo and clarinet and sometimes guitar, and sometimes keys. It just depends.
Yeah. So for the Australian tour, will you bring a range of
I'll
it?
have my banjo and my clarinet. We'll have keys on stage. We'll have drums. We'll have bass. We'll have multiple guitars. We all kind of switch. Everyone is a multi-instrumentalist, so subject to change without notice who's playing what.
Yeah. Is there any sentimental stories behind how you acquired your clarinet or banjo?
You know, not really. I just there's. I wish these ones were sentimental, but they're not a sentimental story. This banjo, I actually got this one because I was robbed in Tampa, Florida, getting off of the Cayamo cruise, which is sort of an Americana festival on a boat. And as we got off the ship and went to the hotel, getting ready to do a little tour around Florida and the South, we were checking in and our gear was against the wall as we were checking in and someone stole my stole my banjo. So this little sweetie is a Deering Americana style banjo that I have converted to be as close to a fretless minstrel style as I can get. I've got these fake gut strings, Aquila Nile gut strings. I modified the bridge. I put this kind of as close to gut but still synthetic head as I could do. But it's just not practical to travel with an actual animal skin head because we go through so many different climates and altitudes and it just could never be tuned. And it can barely be tuned as it is. The banjo is always a culprit. So
Yeah. There's a
yeah.
track on your debut solo album, Outside Child, called Persephone. In Greek mythology, Persephone is the goddess of harvest, spring, and fertility, and the
Yeah.
wife of the god Hades. You've just finished playing Persephone in the musical Hades Town. Oh,
Yeah.
why does your connection with this character run so deep?
It's multifold. I think these myths, there's a reason that we keep retelling these stories. There's a connection to our human natures, there's a connection to our experiences. Persephone, in the world of Hades Town, it's a consensual relationship. But in building my character, one of the things that always influenced me were the Orphic myths, the myths that were attributed to Orpheus as he wandered the earth forlorn for Eurydice after, they're separated forever and all time. And in the Orphic traditions, myths, legends, he tells of Persephone having been violated by her father, Zeus, and having a child by that union, Dionysus, who is then murdered by the Titans. And so, in my version in learning this character for the role for Hades Town, which is for those of you who don't know about it, it's in Australia, you guys, right
Yes,
now. Go see it. Go
yes.
see it. It just opened in Australia. It's my favorite musical. Obviously, I'm biased, having been part of it, but also Aeneas is one of my beloved friends now for almost 2 decades, and a writer whom I admire deeply, one of my desert island writers. And it's a work that I think is speaking loudly to us all right now as well. And I think of it as both good medicine and just an incredibly connected, compelling journey to take. It's always very emotional, both to be on the cast side and in the audience side. I can't get through that show without crying and laughing. And that is the same now, 15 weeks later, after playing this character 8 shows a week for 15 weeks, and I didn't miss a show. And it still makes me feel new things and feel deeply and cry every single time. So I highly recommend it to any of your anyone hearing this, to go check it out in Australia. I've heard wonderful things about the Australian cast, and it's a timeless piece and it's a timeless show. And these myths are the stories that we tell and retell because they remain true in some way to our lived experiences as human beings, as spiritual beings trapped in these human bodies on this planet in this time, the only living planet that we know of in the entire universe. And these stories speak to us for a reason. And I think for me, Persephone has always been about um, joyful survival and the difficulty of that. She's a quite a complex character. She's not an easy character. Her name actually means bringer of destruction, right? Because for 6 months, when she's in the underworld with Hades, the world is destroyed. Her mother, Demeter, grieves so furiously that she collectively punishes the entire world for the absence of her daughter. And so it's not a light story, you know. And my lived experience of my childhood was not a light experience, and so I think I gravitated toward um, places where people were where I could read about that others, that there's a notion that other human beings, or of course these are gods, but the gods are in the shape of humans. They're so human, the Greek gods, aren't they? They're so fallible, just like humans. Zeus is a horrible philandering violator, you know, who just never stops. And Hades really is the best of the lot of the brothers comparatively. But in most of the tales, his abduction of Persephone is not necessarily consensual. In our world of Hades town, we tell it in such a way that their relationship is consensual, or at least it was at the beginning. But there are many different iterations and versions of it, and it's just a myth that has spoken to me at different times in my life really deeply. And you know, she is an archetype that I liken her. I connect her to Kali. I connect her to Oya in the Orishas, West African spirituality traditions. She is both the mother of destruction and also of rebirth and healing. And she's all things. We contain multitudes, and we contain opposing forces. And she highlights that as a goddess and an archetype and a metaphor.
For someone who is an activist in so many important causes and can clearly see the injustices in the world, how do you cope with the sudden chaos that's been inflicted on the world, mainly by rich conservative men? As an artist, how do you help to inform and heal?
Well, I think now is the time, it's all hands on deck. And really, it always has been. In a sense, this is not new. It's just a less hidden, kind of metastasized version of what has been harming us, plaguing us for our human history. You know, there are, unfortunately, this is not new. This is not a new playbook, what we're seeing. And our ancestors have lived through worse, every single one of them. And I draw strength from that. I draw strength from the mitochondrial memory of how to survive and how to form the circles and do the mutual aid work, the circle work, not being dependent or relying on questionable authorities who are abusing power and exploiting and extracting and hoarding resources that they can't take with them when they go. You know, Rhiannon and I were talking about this the other day, my sister Rhiannon Giddens from Our Native Daughters. And had done a talk where she had to delve into the difference between $1 million and $1 billion. And I had never really thought about it. It's all just beyond my ken. But with $1 million, a person, if they did nothing else, and sort of used it regularly, they could spend it in about 3 years. And $1 billion, do you know how long it would take a person to spend $1 billion?
No idea.
2,444 years plus. So we're talking about wealth that's beyond generational, that they're mortal. They're not going to be able to take it with them when they go. Hoarding more and more of it. It's an illness.
Mm.
It's honestly a mental illness. And I think it's fascinating that we don't approach it as such. You know, we know when someone hoards physical objects in their home to the point where it becomes a fire hazard, or they're getting sick because there's black mold growing on something, or you know, there's like reality shows about people that have you know, the illness of the compulsion to physically hoard things. Yet we look at billionaires, and our cultures, our kind of Western capitalist culture has decided that that is somehow admirable instead of concerning and requiring of an intervention. You know, like how much more do you need?
Mm.
You couldn't spend it in 2,000 years, you know. So I don't know, it's fascinating. That part of it is fascinating to me, the way that we worship money hoarding and resource hoarding. I think that's something hopefully that we will start to evolve beyond and start to see it as the imbalance and the unsustainable systemic cancerous shutdown that it actually is, right?
Yeah. So how do you cut through with your message? And I mean, are you just talking to the converted anyway?
I can't, I don't think any of us can know who we reach. We just have to keep singing and speaking our truths and connecting with as many people as we can. We all have a sphere of influence, and every single effort towards harm reduction, towards community building, towards kindness, towards empathy, towards compassion, towards forgiveness for those who are unable to help themselves and their exploitative, abusive, greedy practices, because we have to free ourselves from this cycle of outrage and reaction to their rotting imaginations, frankly. We have to get imaginative with each other. What is the world, to quote Hadestown and Aeneas, the world we dream of, what is it? We need to dream better together and build better together. And a lot of it has to do, I think, with not wasting our time and our energy being outraged by people who are outrageous and will continue to be outrageous, and who, we work on what we can change. That's what I believe. And we work with people that are open to hearing us. And the people that are not, who knows, maybe someday they will. Songs have long lives, books have long lives, plays have long lives, conversations have long lives. Going to see things in real life, going to festivals, going to shows, going to art exhibits, going to the library and hearing a book talk, joining a book club, all of these things, I believe, fundamentally change and reduce harm in the world. And of course, one of the most profound metaphors of Hadestown is that the walls, the external walls that we see built, those begin internally. We can't change anything until we start to dismantle our internal walls. And that's something we can all be working on all the time.
Yeah. Well, Alison, it's been great to chat, and we look forward to you bringing your joy to Australia, and we'll see you very soon.
Looking forward to it. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Alison.